I have been living with my mom since graduating college 3 years ago. The arrangement was supposed to be temporary while I saved for a down payment on a condo, but the housing market is insane, and I kept pushing back my timeline. I pay $600 in rent, basically covering my portion of utilities and groceries, help with household chores, and have been putting away about 70% of my salary from my job as a graphic designer. 2 weeks ago, I came home to find my mom, 52F, sitting at the kitchen table with a stern expression. She told me that my younger brother Jake, 23M, was moving back home after a bad breakup and needed my room. According to her, Jake was really struggling and needed more support than I did. She said I had 2 weeks to figure something out because Jake needed to move in ASAP. I was shocked. I tried to reason with her, suggesting we convert the home office into a bedroom for Jake or asking if we could share the basement space temporarily. She shot down all my suggestions, saying Jake needed privacy and his own space to heal. When I pointed out that I'd been paying rent while Jake would likely be broke after his breakup, she said, "That's what family is for. We need to support each other in hard times." I'll admit, I got angry. I asked her why Jake's hard time trumped my financial goals, and she snapped, "Because you're an adult with a good job. You should have moved out years ago instead of taking advantage of me." That hit me hard. I'd never thought of our arrangement as taking advantage of her. We'd explicitly agreed to this setup, and I'd been contributing financially and helping around the house. I said as much, but she just repeated that I had 2 weeks to leave. The next day, I took the day off work and started apartment hunting. By some miracle, I found a decent studio within my budget that was available immediately. I signed the lease that afternoon and paid the security deposit plus first month's rent. I also bought some essential furniture from IKEA that same day and scheduled a delivery. Over the next week, I quietly packed all my belongings while my mom was at work. I didn't tell her I'd found a place because, honestly, I was still hurt and angry about the whole situation. I also didn't want her trying to get me to delay moving out now that I'd committed to the apartment. Yesterday, the IKEA delivery arrived at my new place, and I moved most of my boxes over. Today, I plan to grab the last of my things and officially move out, 5 days before her deadline. Here's where I might be the asshole. My mom came home early yesterday and caught me loading my car. She seemed completely shocked that I was actually moving out and asked why I hadn't told her I'd found a place. She then got teary-eyed and said she thought we'd have more time to talk things through before I left. I was confused by her reaction. "What is there to talk through?" I asked. "You told me I needed to be out in 2 weeks. I'm out in 9 days. I thought you'd be happy." Mom started backpedaling, saying she didn't expect me to find a place so quickly and that she was just trying to motivate me to start looking for my own place. She claimed she never actually expected me to move out immediately and thought we'd have more time to transition. This made no sense to me since she'd been very clear about the 2-week deadline because of Jake's situation. "But what about Jake?" I asked. "Doesn't he need to move in right away?" She hesitated before admitting that Jake wasn't moving in until the end of the month, potentially even later. So the urgent 2-week timeline had been completely artificial. At this point, I was even more hurt and angry than before. I told her I'd already signed a lease and couldn't back out, nor did I want to after how she'd treated me. Mom started crying harder, saying she never meant for me to actually leave home like this. She said she thought we would have a few more months together, that I'd take my time finding the perfect place, and we'd have a proper goodbye with family dinners and helping me move. I reminded her that SHE was the one who told me I had 2 weeks to get out, not me. Then came the real kicker. Mom confessed that part of the reason she wanted me to start looking was that her boyfriend Phil, 57M, had been pressuring her about me still living at home. Apparently, he thought it was unhealthy that I was still living with my mom at 25 and had been making comments about it for months. She admitted she'd exaggerated Jake's situation to create a sense of urgency. I was speechless. I've only met Phil a handful of times, and she was letting this man she's been dating for less than a year influence major decisions about our family? I told her exactly how I felt about that, and she got defensive, saying I didn't understand how hard dating was at her age and that she was just trying to balance everyone's needs. I ended up leaving with another car full of my belongings, telling her I'd be back for the rest the next day. She tried to get me to stay for dinner so we could talk more, but I declined. I was too upset to have a civil conversation. When I got to my new apartment, I had several missed calls and texts from Mom, ranging from apologetic to accusatory. She was saying I was being dramatic and ungrateful for everything she's done for me. She even suggested I was being selfish for not considering how Jake's breakup had affected the whole family and how my hasty departure was adding more stress. My dad, who's been divorced from Mom for 10 years, called after Mom contacted him. He thinks I did nothing wrong, but suggested that maybe I could have communicated my moving plans better to avoid the drama. My sister is fully on my side and says mom is just upset because she didn't expect me to be so resourceful and independent. I finished moving out yesterday. Mom tried one more time to convince me to reconsider, saying I could stay in the basement until I found a nicer place instead of my depressing studio. I stood firm and told her that I wasn't interested in any arrangement where I could be asked to leave on short notice again. The conversation got heated when she accused me of being vindictive and trying to hurt her by moving out so abruptly. I lost my cool and told her that she was the one who hurt me by prioritizing her boyfriend's opinion and Jake's comfort over my stability. I also pointed out that she'd called me a mooch who was taking advantage of her, which wasn't something I could just forget. She got defensive again, claiming I was twisting her words and that she never meant it that way. Then she tried to guilt me, saying she was just looking forward to having more time with me before I moved out. She started crying about how she'd miss our morning coffee chats and movie nights. I reminded her that she was the one who established the 2-week deadline, not me. Later that evening, Jake called me. Apparently, Mom had been crying to him about how I'd abandoned the family. He was confused because he thought I'd been planning to move out soon anyway. When I explained what really happened, he was shocked. He said Mom had told him I was excited about moving out so he could have my room. He had no idea she'd essentially kicked me out on his behalf. Jake was really apologetic and said he never would have agreed to move back if he'd known it meant displacing me. He also revealed that his breakup wasn't nearly as devastating as Mom had made it sound. Yes, he was sad, but he wasn't some emotional wreck who needed special accommodations. He'd actually suggested sleeping on the couch until he found his own place, but Mom insisted he needed my room. This morning, I woke up in my new apartment feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me feels guilty for upsetting my mom, but another part feels proud of myself for how quickly I was able to secure housing and move out. I've been saving diligently, so while this wasn't my ideal timeline, I'm financially okay. Mom has been texting nonstop, alternating between apologies and passive-aggressive comments about how I've broken her heart. My sister thinks Mom is just embarrassed that her manipulation backfired and that I called her bluff. Dad says Mom is probably realizing that she's lost the convenient arrangement we had, where I was contributing financially and helping around the house. I'm wondering if I overreacted by moving out so quickly without discussion. Maybe I should have been more understanding about her wanting to help Jake. But then I remember how she blindsided me with an eviction notice essentially and dismissed all my suggested compromises. I talked to my best friend about it, and she thinks I did the right thing by taking control of the situation rather than letting myself be manipulated. She pointed out that if I had stayed and tried to negotiate, Mom might have kept moving the goalposts or made my living situation increasingly uncomfortable. So, Reddit, AITA for taking my mom's eviction notice literally and moving out without further discussion, even though she apparently didn't really mean it? Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the comments and support. To answer some common questions, yes, I was on the lease as an occupant, but there was no formal rental agreement between my mom and me. And no, I don't plan on moving back regardless of how this plays out.